Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and today on the podcast, quiet quitting. In this series, we are talking about a changing coffee industry, and quiet quitting is definitely a part of that. So let's explore what it is and how you can deal with quiet quitting if you are an employee or you are an employer. Let's do it. This episode is brought to you by Communications Training for Coffee Teams, a new Mapper Forward workshop tailored to get your team communicating more confidently to improve general mental health as well as business profitability. Click the link in the show notes for further details. This past week at MICE, there was one subject that a lot of cafe owners and roastery owners were talking about. Business owners in general were talking about it, and that is the labor shortage that we're experiencing around the world. A part of that labor issue is this concept of quiet quitting. Now, if you haven't heard about quiet quitting, what it is that people who have a job turn up to work. These are typically disgruntled employees. They turn up to work and they do the basic minimum of what their job description is. Now, there are a lot of memes on the internet that, quiet quitting is just doing what your job description is and not any more of that. But the idea behind quiet quitting is that you still come to work, you do your job, you just don't do any extra. And what people are saying is that, this is a good thing, or people are saying this is a terrible thing. I'm going to leave that for you to decide whether it's a great thing or a shitty thing or whatever. What I want to talk about today is what we do about it. Whether you think it's a good thing or a shitty thing, we have to deal with it because it is impacting our industry in a huge way. And what it's leading to is people getting fired or people just no longer bothering to turn up to work, which means small businesses are left with no employees. And the flow-on effect of that is that they either have to close or they have to adapt. Look, it's not surprising that quiet quitting is happening. I believe it's happening for two main reasons. First of all, our industry has such a low barrier to entry for business owners. It is typically where people have their first foray as business owners. A lot of the time, they have no management or leadership experience, nor do they have business experience. And unfortunately, what that leads to is this hustle culture of people building businesses that are hyper profitable, or they aim to be hyper profitable, and they forget the well-being of their employees. They forget that the people who enable their success are employees. The second part of it is the generation that's aged into our industry, Gen Z, in my opinion, they're a lot smarter than my generation. Gen X. We worked our asses off. It was all about hard work. And we were willing to turn a blind eye to a lot of dysfunctional behavior that happened in the workplace. I was one of very few women in the coffee industry when I started 20 years ago, and I didn't have very many people that were prepared to listen to the dysfunction that was going on around me and to me in the industry. And because of that, we cultivated the generation of business owners that expects that it is okay to treat people like shit. And this generation has come in and said, no thanks, we're not going to deal with that. And business owners are surprised that this new generation is saying, you have to treat me better than that. And when you hire me, you have to tell me how or what you're expecting me to do. And that's the job that I'm going to do. But because people think that this industry has much more profit than it actually has, business owners are starting to realize that I need my staff to do more than I ask them to do. Now, on the flip side of that, when you're coming into an industry and you're going to do the bare minimum in the job that you're doing, I believe you're cutting your nose off despite your face. And so while I have a lot of respect for what this next generation of employees is teaching my generation about boundaries and about being treated well, I want to caution that you are removing some of the opportunities out of your path by quietly quitting. If you intend on making coffee a career rather than just a job, by not showing that you're willing to do extra work, you're not showing your boss or the person that you're working for that you have grit, that you have, that you're hungry to improve and to grow, and you're not giving them a reason to fund more education and to fund more opportunities for you. You're also not giving them a reason to consider you for promotions. So I suspect if you're listening to this podcast, you're not somebody who just does coffee as a job. What I suspect is that you're in coffee because it's a career. If you're watching this outside of the coffee industry, and I know that there is a growing number of people outside of the coffee industry that do watch this episode or listen to this podcast, I encourage you to consider these things of what benefit it has to you to quietly quit. If quiet quitting is presenting you with the opportunity to create a side hustle, or it's giving you the space to find another job, then please respectfully do that as quickly as you can and have a conversation with your boss. Have a conversation with the person that is running the business and let them know what's going on. If you're quietly quitting because you have a distaste for your employer, you're in a toxic environment. Get yourself out of there as quickly as possible. Rather than quietly quit, send a signal. There is so much work out there. Get another job. Get the fuck out of there as quickly as possible. Because your employer, if they're not treating you well, doesn't deserve you. But before you do that, ask yourself the question, what am I bringing to this situation? What am I doing that's causing this to be a toxic relationship? And it could be staying is the thing that you're doing to cultivate a toxic relationship. And in my case, a lot of the time, I knew that the workplace I was in was a toxic space. Staying for me was my role in the toxic relationship. So don't quietly quit if you're in a toxic situation. Just get the fuck out of there is my recommendation. So how do we handle this moving forward? Employers, if you find that your staff are quietly quitting, ask why. Because I can tell you, staff that love working towards a values-based model don't quietly quit. They want to conspire to your success. Ask yourself, are you delivering on what you've promised to your staff? Are you communicating well with them? Or are you creating a toxic environment? A passive approach to leadership doesn't mean that you are not responsible for a toxic relationship, because passive leadership can be as toxic as aggressive leadership. If you notice that your staff have decided they're just going to do the bare minimum, you have a problem. You have a problem that you may not be aware of. If you are a staff member that is quietly quitting, understand that you are a part of a team. And if you are staying in a team where you want a career and your protest is to quietly quit and sabotage the business, that stink of that kind of behavior follows you through your career. So please, if you're an employer or you're an employee, figure out how you can move with greater integrity through these challenging times. Be respectful to yourself above all and to your future career, and be respectful to your teammates and to other people, because the challenging times ahead are just going to get more challenging. Position yourself so that you are conspiring to your own success as well as to the success of others who you respect and who you want to see thrive. This doesn't have to be a protest that hurts your career or hurts somebody's business. Just move on. They don't deserve your attention. and they don't deserve the opportunity to continue being toxic towards your career path. I hope that's been helpful. I hope you found this series enjoyable. If you have, consider sharing it with people, consider subscribing, and help spread the love. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks, friends. If you enjoyed this video, here's what you should check out next.